It is the nature of youth to rebel against their parents in every generation. That's part of the process of becoming our own person. It's therefore not surprising at all that in their teens and 20s we find a high percentage of young men and women who were raised in a church-attending home taking advantage of their new liberation into early adulthood by choosing to walk away from their parents' faith. Sometimes it's triggered by the inconsistencies and even hypocrisies of the mom and dad who professed faith on Sundays but didn't live out that faith in a consistent and winsome way. Sometimes young people fall away from the church because the church they were exposed to had flaws and errors or didn't do a good job of exposing them to the true message of Jesus. Sometimes young people turn away from God because of moral and lifestyle choices they have made that they know are inconsistent with a life of faith, and they try to run from guilt and accountability. And sometimes it's a necessary process because everyone who is a true Christian has had to make that decision for themselves. One commentator put it this way: "In God's family, there are no grandchildren, only children." In this episode of It's Never Too Late, we will hear the story of a man who was a giant in the world of Western literature in the 20th century and who had to follow the path of rejecting the faith of his parents in order to find it for himself later in life. We'll take a closer look at what happened in this brilliant and remarkable writer and poet in just a moment. But first, I'd like to ask for your help. If you enjoy this video, please hit the like button and feel free to subscribe to this Life Academy channel. This will help more people find us on YouTube so that they can see and hear inspiring stories like this one. And of course, you can share it directly with your friends as well. We will now review the life of W.H. Auden. He was born in England early in the 20th century into a family of believing and practicing Anglicans. His intellectual abilities were recognized early, and he abandoned his faith by the time he arrived at Oxford in his late teens. His skills with the English language were remarkable. He quickly became a published poet in an era when poetry was still being read and appreciated by the general public. He was also a gifted writer of prose, and soon after graduation was employed by the Oxford University Press at its headquarters in London, rising quickly to become an editor. Auden was, for a while, between the world wars, enamored of fascism. But then, watching from a distance Hitler's increasingly brutal regime in Germany, he soured on it and began to flirt with the seemingly romantic and idealistic attractions of communism. As a young man, he experimented with homosexual relationships and struggled with the competing impulses within him of lust for pleasure, success, and fame, and of higher motivations to serve mankind. The poetry and prose of W.H. Auden went through a wide range of styles and modifications throughout his career. He was extremely versatile in his writing and his intellect. He wrote song lyrics, film scripts, and musical plays, several volumes of poetry, literary criticism, and prose journalism. He was a sought-after speaker and lecturer at universities across the English-speaking world and taught writing at the University of Michigan for several years. In his later years, he divided his time between New York City and a home in the Austrian Alps, where he died at the age of 63 of lung disease following a lifetime of heavy smoking. The most intriguing change in Auden's personal life began around 1940, when he was in his 30s. He had moved to New York to work on his music writing career. There he met a writing collaborator, and they became lovers as well as professional partners. Not long after that, he made the decision to return to his spiritual roots, and he joined an Episcopal church in New York. He later explained the process that led to his conversion. While still in London, working for Oxford Press, he met and began a friendship with Charles Williams, a successful novelist, editor, and poet 20 years his senior. Williams was a strong and articulate Christian. After Auden moved to New York, Williams relocated to Oxford to continue his career and became a close friend of C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien, joining their weekly discussion group of spiritual writers called the Inklings. By the way, Lewis scholars attribute to Charles Williams a powerful influence on several of Lewis's adult fiction books, including especially That Hideous Strength. With thoughts planted in his mind by Williams, Auden thought carefully through his earlier political and philosophical views and determined that they were inferior to the Christian message and its consistent worldview. His newfound or rediscovered faith motivated Auden within a year to inform his male lover that they would have to cease their sexual relationship and become platonic friends, because he believed that this was what the Bible was leading him to do. They actually did remain friends and professional collaborators for the rest of their lives, and apparently both were celibate from that time forward. W.H. Auden, in his later poetry and prose writings, explored many spiritual topics and their implications for all of life. He wrote a series of poems based on the traditional Anglican liturgy of praying the hours, reflecting on the sacrifice of Christ and its meaning for mankind. Auden is considered one of the greatest poets in the English language and is memorialized in the famous Poets' Corner of Westminster Abbey, along with Milton, Keats, Wordsworth, and others. Many to this day will read W.H. Auden without realizing how profoundly his life and work were transformed by a personal relationship with Christ. His legacy is another bit of proof that when it comes to faith, it's never too late.